Blog Talk Radio.
Dichamo apura kanu apura taiknu neye akanfo nanasom da medinde ojirapo kwesi rane mpata akan. Akwamumai na maruka etipi mu ojirapo. That means greetings to all apura kani apura kaini people, meaning Africans, black people today. It's Akanfo Nanasom Day, ancient authentic Akan ancestral religion day. My name is Ojirapo Kwesi Radnehmpata Akan, Ojirapo of the Akwamu Nation in North America. Yet I'll say for tuning in once again, we were having, Blog Talk was having problems with the phone lines. They just came back on, so they've been having some system-wide problems actually for the past month. As a matter of fact, we had to take a couple of weeks off system-wide with all thousands of radio hosts not being able to, come on. So we just had another problem for the first 14 minutes or so. So what we're going to do right now, we see some messages that people are having. So if people can check back, now people are starting to be able to listen. If you got some messages from some other people, send them a message through your contacts, the people who you have messaged. Let them know that the show got back on, because I know within the first 15 minutes since Blog Talk phones were not working, a lot of people who would have tried to get on, they probably just, logged out and assumed that the show wasn't going to, happen. In fact, we were just about to cancel it when the show came on. So, if you can send out a message to your link now, just let people know if they were asking. Let people know what's going on, and we're just finishing the setup right now. So give us a second. For the individuals who are new to the broadcast, we do have 3 broadcasts on a weekly basis, and what we may end up doing is, we're going to end up migrating our broadcast back to Ustream TV, and we may simulcast at first and do both at the same time, simulcasting with Ustream as well as Blog Talk, but we'll probably just migrate all of the broadcasts to Ustream TV and just cut Blog Talk off totally. We'll, of course, have all of the archives and upload them to YouTube and so forth, and to our website, so you can access those, but we wasted a lot of time with Blog Talk, so we're probably just going to migrate everything back to Ustream TV, starting more than likely next week. And as a matter of fact, we'll get into that. Next week is the beginning. In fact, this week is the beginning of our Obrajira Nananom, our 7-day New Year's celebration that actually begins on this year on Yauda, which is September 17th, and it will go through September 23rd. And September 23rd is the first day of the Atemet equinox, and that is the first day of our new year. So we are going to, this week will be our last broadcasting week for 13,015, and then on September 23rd, which is next AKUABA or AKUABA Wednesday, that is our New Year's Day. That is the first day of the new year for the Akwamu Nation in North America, Akwamu Mana Marukai Tifimu, and that will be the year 13,016. So this is the last broadcasting week for this year, and then we'll probably just migrate our entire broadcast back over to Ustream starting next year. Next week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we will not be broadcasting because we'll be in the midst of our 7-day observance. Then we'll come back on the following week. We'll have updates for that. We just want to send out a couple of messages. In the meantime, you can go to the Hoodoo page on the website, and we'll put the link up for that. And on the Hoodoo page, you will find the documents that we are going to be dealing with tonight. So, for individuals who are new to the broadcast, we have 3 broadcasts on a weekly basis. Akanfo Nanasom, ancient authentic Akan ancestral religion, on Joda on Monday night, where we deal with the Akan expression of Nanasom of Afurakani, Afurai Kaitni, or African ancestral religion, specifically the Akan expression on Monday nights on Joda. We are an Akan organization, so that's one reason we focus on that specific expression on Joda Monday nights, but then also because, of course, there's a great deal of misinformation being propagated in the Western Hemisphere, but also from the continent, from continental Akanfo in Ghana, Ivory Coast, who have been infected with Islam and Christianity and white culture in general, and therefore the presentation of the culture, the cosmology, ritual practices has been infected by many individuals. So what you receive from such individuals is very often misinformation. So we deal specifically and correctly and clarify the nature of the Great Mother and Great Father, Nyamewa, and Nyame, the Supreme Being, the nature of the Creator and Creatress, Nyokumpon and Nyokunton, also called Ra and Raida Nature Kemet, who are grandchildren of the Supreme Being. We talk about the nature of the Abosom, the forces in nature, the actual forces in nature, real divinities, not pseudo-divinities. We talk about the Akradim Bosom, the Abosom who govern the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies, which govern the 7-day week, as well as the other Abosom as well. We talk about the Nanano Nsamanfo, the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors of our direct blood circles. We talk about the a number of different spiritual agencies and so forth, and their relationship to us, how we interact in the world, the nature of our Krawa, our soul, our divine consciousness, the divinity dwelling in the head region of Afurakani people, and of course our people only, and how our divine functioning creation is encoded within our Krawa, our soul, our divine consciousness. So we go through that kind of information in detail, cosmology, culture, ritual practice. We also show our cultural continuity from ancient Kanat, which is the title of ancient Nubia, where we originated as Akanfo, as Akan people, migrating up into Kemet, some of our people, but a couple of thousand years ago, our people migrating west to Ghana, the empire of Akana or Ghana, reestablishing that empire a couple of thousand years ago. Then about 1,000 years later, some of our people migrating from that region towards the forest belt to reestablish Akana civilization in the forest belt and savanna region of today's regions of the Republic of Ghana and Ivory Coast. A few hundred years later, some of our people were forced from those regions to North Central South America, the Caribbean, and Europe during the Mmusuo Kese, the Great Perversity, the Enslavement era. So we talk about that direct link, that direct descent, that direct ancestral heritage from ancient Kanat, ancient Akana civilization to contemporary Akana civilization in the blood circles of our people wherever we exist in the world, including in the Western Hemisphere, including in North America. And that also deals with the Hoodoo tradition, which is the Akan tradition that was brought to North America. So we're going to get into that tonight. This is what we deal with on AKANFO NANASOM. On Ojira, which is on Tuesdays, Benada, our Ojira broadcast. Ojira means purification. It also means a celebration of purification in the Akan language and our ancestral language of ancient Kanat and Kemet. Ojira also means purification and also a celebration of purification. We've shown throughout multiple documents that the Akan language, as well as many others on the continent, are directly derived from our ancestral language of ancient Kanat and Kemet. It is the same language that you see written in the Medusu, in the hieroglyphs, the same language. We continue to speak the same language, utilizing the same words, the same names of deities, same multi-tiered concepts and so forth, unbroken for thousands of years. There may be verb agreements that shift to a certain extent, certain idioms and things like that. Language is the same language. And we're in the midst, you'll see one of our recent publications is Akan vocalizations of our ancestral language of Kemet. We're showing side by side words in the Akan dictionary next to the hieroglyphic dictionary, the exact same words, the same definitions and so forth. And we're in the process of completing a larger work, which is a comprehensive comparative dictionary of Akan and the language of ancient Kemet, showing thousands and thousands of words that are the same, proving conclusively that this is the same language, directly descendant from our ancestral language. So we speak the same language. We get possessed by the same deity with the same names and so forth. We deal with that in detail. So Ojida, purification, also a celebration of purification. Of course, that celebration that you see talked about in ancient Kemet called Ojida is the celebration of purification that we are going to embark on beginning this Yauda Thursday, Yada Abada Thursday, the first day of our 7-day New Year celebration, which is called Ojida in the Akan language. With Ojida, we talk about purification. Purification for Ojida operationalizes Nanasom. Nanasom is our general term for Afurakani, the African ancestral religion. No matter what expression that takes, ancestral religion is our alignment with the Great Mother and the Great Father, the Supreme Being, through the agency of the deities and the ancestresses and ancestors of our direct blood circles who are spiritually cultivated. That is true. That superstructure is true across the board wherever Afurakani people exist in the world, past, present, and future. We have different languages that express these concepts and different specific modes of operating and aligning with the forces in nature, but at the end of the day, we still end up at the same place. Even though we have varied expressions based on our trustery, based on our movement to different parts of the continent, different parts of the world, we have different dietary practices, different ritual song, ritual dance, ritual clothing, and so forth, based on our trustery, based on what we have done over thousands of years. But fundamentally, we are aligning with the Great Mother and the Great Father through the agency of the deities and the ancestresses and ancestors who are spiritually cultivated of our direct blood circle. So we clarify concepts in the Ojida broadcast. We talk about how Ojida purification operationalizes Nanasom, operationalizes ancestral religion, which is the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance. So through ritual, we incorporate those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to incorporate in order to harmonize our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order. And through ritual, we reject those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to reject in order to restore balance to our thoughts, intentions, and actions so that we may realign ourselves with divine order. So the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance. Those are the expansive and contractive poles of ancestral religion. And it is through purification, Ojida, that we operationalize our practice of ancestral religion. We purify ourselves so we can align ourselves with order and reestablish and realign ourselves with order when we get off track spiritually. That way we can execute our function in creation in a harmonious fashion and be productive, build and maintain and defend our community, ourselves, our Afurakani nation, ancestral religion animates our culture. It is the foundation of Amainsesu, or nation building, nation restoration. So this is what we deal with. We deal with texts from ancient Kemet as well as across the continent and wherever we are in the world, including the Western Hemisphere. We deal with clarifying concepts and ritual practices, the nature of function of the divinities, the ancestresses and ancestors in their relationship to us, the nature of the Supreme Being, and so forth. And we deal with ancestral religion in general. On Monday nights, we deal specifically with the Akan expression, but on Joda, on Benada, Abenada, Ojida, we deal with ancestral religion across the board and how it impacts every aspect of our lives. It's not something that's set aside for a few moments every now and then. Every aspect of our lives are impacted by ancestral religion when you're really engaged in that practice, because we're talking about a way of life, incorporating law and restoring balance so that you can align your thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order every moment of every day. That's what ancestral religion is dealing with. So it impacts every moment of every day when you're functioning in that light. So that's what we deal with. On Awukuda, AKUABA Wednesdays, we have Egua Marketplace Day, where we showcase Afurakani businesses, organizations, and institutions, showcase their positive contributions to the community, how they are serving the community in a positive capacity, and how their ancestral religious values inform their service to the community. And so we've had a number of individuals come on, talk about their businesses, organizations, and institutions, sit with us for the entire 2 hours to share that information and share their journey to ancestral culture and religion and how it informs their service to us. We have also published the Akan Economic Development Model, and in that model, we are talking about assisting and supporting one Black business, organization, or institution per week for 52 weeks as a community. Our strategy is to starve the beast and feed the pride. That means we make an assessment on a weekly basis to determine what funds we would have potentially wasted with the whites and their offspring, and then we starve the beast and feed the pride. We take that $5 or $10 away from those businesses that we would have wasted and reallocate it to the business, organization, or institution of the week. When you go to our Akan Economic Development Model page, you'll see the list of businesses that we have been supporting. We are supporting one business, organization, or institution per week, and we've been doing that since February as a community, one per week, so that we can have optimal capital infusion. So one person redirects $10 away from a white business if they would have spent money on an Arizona iced tea, a couple of cans, over the course, of a number of days. You spend $10 or something like that over the course of 7 days. You take that $10 and reallocate it away from that white business and direct it towards the Black business of the week. That's an additional $10 you've taken from the Achuwadifo, the spirits of disorder, the whites and their offspring, and given to our people. If 1,000 people do that, then that's a $10,000 infusion of capital to that Black business so they can expand higher within the community, serve us at a greater capacity, and so forth. If we do not do this, by default, we are leaving that $10,000 with our absolute enemies, the whites and their offspring. And that includes white Europeans, white Americans, white Hindus, white Arabs, white Asians, white pseudo-Native Americans, white Hispanic, Latinos, Latinas, and so forth. The whites and their offspring incarnate as spirits of disorder without exception. And they are our absolute enemies without exception. Just like cancerous cells that develop within your body are your enemies and are repulsive without exception. And so your immune system seeks to move and does move to isolate those cancerous, disfigured cells, to destroy them and expel them from the body in order to maintain the integrity of this is what we're dealing with. If we do not reallocate our funds, we are by default financing our own oppression by supporting our enemies. So we put that link in the chat room so you can see the Akan Economic Development Model. You can download that model. You can download the 4-part series we did on Blog Talk, explicating that model, as well as the 2 additional broadcasts, AKUABA, Economic Warfare, and also Nkwadifo Ne Amamre, Self-Employment and Ancestral Culture. So all of that is on the Akan Economic Development Model page. So we want to get into the subject for tonight. We're going to put the links in the chat room real quick. And for the people who are just coming back on, and we just want to put a couple of links. What was happening early on, if you're just back joining us, Blog Talk Radio was having a problem across the board, system-wide, with their phones, so people were not able to call in, including us. We weren't able to call into the show. So that was for the first 15 minutes, and we were just able to get back on 15 minutes ago. So if you were in contact with anybody online or via phone and so forth, and you were telling them about the broadcast, some of them may have assumed that we weren't going to have the broadcast because they weren't able to get on for the first 15 minutes. And some of them recognized that a few weeks ago, Blog Talk Radio had a major breakdown across the board for about 2 weeks, where thousands of broadcasters were not able to have their shows. So they may have assumed that this was another piece like that. So if you were in contact with people, just let them know that we are back on. You can send them a message, and we're sending messages as well to some of the people who are connected with us via social media. So we're going to put these links in the chat room for the articles, a couple of articles that we want to deal with tonight. So just give us a second right quick. I want to pull those links up. And also, before we get into that, we should have an update with regard to the Akwamumain. We talked about the Akwamumain New Year, the Ojira, September 17th through the 23rd. We were talking about having an event on the 19th in the D.C. area on the third day of the New Year for the community to come out and participate in that observation. We will have an update with regard to that probably by tomorrow. We had a couple of cancellations with regard to the venue that we were trying to connect with, and it took them a minute to get back because at first they were booked, but then they said they had cancellations, and then they were waiting to fully confirm the cancellations and so forth. So it took them a while to get back, so we're going to confirm everything, and we should have a confirmation one way or the other by tomorrow, maybe later tonight, but by tomorrow, so we'll let everyone know if we'll still be able to have that on that particular day, which will be the 19th, and that will be a community-wide. Of course, it's free. You can come out. We'll let everybody know about that coming up. Okay, so one of the links we've posted in the chat room, and we're going to find the other link, and then we'll get started. If you have any questions or comments on the phone line, hit the number 1 so we can see that your hand is raised. Also, if you are in the chat room, you must log in as a user in the chat room in order to interact in the chat room. If you do not have a username, you can set up one quickly in Blog Talk, and then you can interact in the chat room. And we're going to put the second link there, and that's the second article link. All right. Make sure we got that. Okay, that's the other link. So those 2 links for the 2 articles are in the chat room now. For the people on the phone line, PDF version on the Hoodoo page on our website, which is a new page we just put up a little bit over a week ago. Hoodoo Doll-Baby, AKUABA, Continuity of Akan Culture in North America. So we're going to go over that one first. So what we have done here in this publication, and it's linked to our book, Hoodoo People, Akurakanu, Akuraikaitu in North America, Akan, Custodians of Hoodoo from Ancient Hoodoo, Ndunu, Land, Kanif, Nubia. What we have done with this publication is shown conclusively, that the book shown conclusively that Hoodoo is the Akan religion brought to North America by Akan people. It's like some people are familiar with the fact that Vodou, from the language of the Fon and Ewe people in West Africa, from ancient Dahomey, today's Benin, as well as Togo and so forth. Also, some live in parts of Ghana and other countries, but primarily Togo and Benin. The Fon and Ewe-speaking people. The term Vodou comes from their language. Vodou means deity, spirit, god, or goddess. It's like Abosom and Akan and Orisha in Yoruba and so forth. The Fon and Ewe people brought Vodou to the Western Hemisphere during the Mmusuo Kese, the Great Perversity, the Enslavement era. When you hear the terms Vodou or Voodoo, you know it came from the Fon people. Now later on, the term Vodou or Voodoo is just used indiscriminately as a term to identify ancestral religion or misused as a negative term and so forth. But originally it comes directly from the people, and many people understand it. What many people do not understand is the term Hoodoo comes directly from the Akan language. It was the Akan people who brought Hoodoo to North America. The Akan religion was popularly called Hoodoo in North America. From the Akan term Ndu, which means medicine, specifically talking about root medicine, root work, and so forth, and also to conjure. This is why in English, when somebody says, what does Hoodoo mean? They say it means root work, root medicine, root doctors, and so forth, but it's also called conjure, because those 2 definitions are the definitions of the term Ndu in the Akan language. That is part of our practice, because that practice was so powerful and poignant with regard to overthrowing the whites and their offspring with chemical and biological warfare, root medicine, root doctors, and so forth, conjuring the spirits of our ancestresses and ancestors and the Abosom who will possess our people and animate us and motivate us to wage war against the whites and our offspring and to massacre them and overthrow the slave system. Because it was so powerful in that regard, the tradition itself began to be popularly referred to as NDU and later Hoodoo and so forth, because that's part of the Akan religious practice. So we prove that in the book. We also go further to show that the term NDU, meaning ritual practice, medicine, root work, and so forth, the Undu Yefo, the root worker, the root doctor, literally the Odun Sinifo in Akan culture, the root worker, root doctor, conjurer, also Udumanfo, and so forth. Those are the terms for the spiritualists, male and female in the tradition, also meaning altars, all kinds of things ritually. We show that that term is taken directly, as we showed earlier, from our ancient language of ancient Kanat and Kemet, Nubia and Egypt. So you'll find that Undu also means medicine, Undu also means roots and plants and so forth. Undu also means to conjure, to bring down the spirit. Undu also means altars. Undu also means ritual medicine. Undu also means ritual offerings and so forth. In the language of ancient Kemet, we prove that and show the Medusa the hieroglyphs for that. So there's an unbroken lineage from ancient Kanat, which also has the title Undu, the Undu land. And the people called the Undu, so Hoodoo or Undu was a title of ancient Nubia, the title of the people, the Akan people, because another title of ancient Nubia is Kanat, the Kanat or Kanit land, the Akan land, the Undu land, the Akan people, Kanit people, the Undu people. And when we migrated to the West Apuraka, we continue to call ourselves Akan people, Undu people, and so forth. And in North America, we are still the Akan people or Hoodoo people and so forth. So we go into detail to prove that conclusively in our book. In this particular article, we build upon that, and we're talking about specific aspects or manifestations of Hoodoo, the Akan religion in North America, prior to the term being indiscriminately used just to label any ancestral religious practice or being used in a negative fashion. So, it's an ancestrally inherited and transmitted practice, ritual culture in the blood circles of our people. We never lost our ancestral religion. When you have Akan spirit possession and Nkom spirit communication, then you cannot lose a tradition. When the same deities that animate the sun and moon and earth mother and oceans and rivers and thunder, lightning, atmosphere, the black substance of space, those same spirits that animate these aspects of creation who possess our people in ancient times, in ancient Kanat and Kemet, those same spirits that animate the sun and animate the moon and animate the earth mother and animate the oceans and atmosphere and so forth, wind, thunder, lightning, fire, these are the same forces in nature physically, but the spirits that animate these aspects of nature still possess our people today, on the continent today and wherever we are in the world. So we get possessed, we engage spirit possession, these forces in nature communicate directly with us and teach and guide us. When our ancestresses and ancestors, our direct blood relatives, when our people make their transition and go to the ancestral realm, they still possess our people, they still show up and communicate with our people. Our children can see our deceased relatives. We as adults can see them when we're receptive or hear them. Clairvoyance, clairaudience, can feel them through clairsentience, can smell them through clairalience, smelling the spirit energy beyond the physical senses. Clairgustance, we have a different taste when they move forward. They stimulate that sensory organ within us. Clairtemience is our sense of time. The time continuum shifts when the spirit comes into the room and so forth. Clairtemience or clairequilibrance, our sense of balance is thrown off. We become dizzy and so forth. When the energy moves through the room, we can communicate with them through Nkom. We get possessed through Akan. And when you have Akan and Nkom spirit possession, spirit communication, you can never lose a tradition. If the whites and offspring would try to make us believe that we lost a tradition, how can you lose a tradition? We can simply communicate with the actual ancestresses and ancestors who established the tradition. That's insane to believe that we can lose a tradition. That's only for people who are not engaged in a tradition. So we never stopped practicing. one of the manifestations of hoodoo is what is called in America, hoodoo people, the Hoodoo Doll-Baby. There's a difference between the voodoo or Vodou, quote-unquote, doll or ritual figure, and the hoodoo, quote-unquote, doll-baby. People are used to seeing, quote-unquote, voodoo dolls and so forth. People all across the continent use ritual figures for ritual purposes. We have wooden sculptures and other materials, clay and other materials, where we utilize these sculptures, these quote-unquote idols, which is a sacred practice. Only idiots think that idolatry is evil. The whites and offspring don't want us to utilize idols because they know they can't control it. And you can create a sculpture, and then the abosom, the forces of nature, will take up residence in that sculpture to communicate directly with you. It's like you have a cell phone, which is just a piece of material, but then because it's aligned and connected with the satellite and so forth, you can speak through that implement, that instrument, to somebody on the other side of the world. When we have a sculpture, and the force that animates the sun can take up a residence in that sculpture to communicate, utilize it as a means of communication, a medium of communication with us, and direct us to rise up and massacre our enemies. The whites and offspring cannot control that. So they want to make us believe that idolatry is evil. In reality, it's sacred and divine. They can't control it. It's too dangerous for them when they're trying to control a population. They can't have people whose countries they have invaded being able to sit down, set up a sculpture. A deity takes up residence in the sculpture and directs the people how to rise up and kill the enemies who invaded their culture, kill the whites and offspring. So they had to try to demonize the practice, but we know better. Idolatry is divine, sacred, brilliant ritual practice. So we've always utilized that as part of our ritual practice. The Vodou, quote-unquote, dolls that people often see, and people see people sticking pins in them. The whites and offspring have even, misrepresented that practice greatly. You see, for example, in Vodou and Haitian Vodou and other forms of Vodou, like in New Orleans and so forth, you see there are different nations. It's a Pan-African process to a certain degree. You have the Rada nation and Petro nation and different nations, different ethnic groups participating in ancestral religious practice in a harmonious fashion. So the Fon and Ebe divinities, the Rada divinities and so forth come forth, and the Igbo and the Congo and so forth. And you see, for example, in the Congo tradition, they have an Nkisi, they have their little sculpture. The spirit takes up residence in that sculpture. They have the nails stuck all through the body of the sculpture, which is representing a covenant or a contract and so forth when it's stuck in there. Then you'll see the quote-unquote Vodou dolls, and they misrepresent that by sticking pins in the doll. There are things that can be done once you identify this ritual figure is associated with a specific individual or entity, and what you do with that figure affects the individual or entity when they are connected and so forth. That's something that's done all across the continent and wherever Black people have migrated to the world. But there's a difference between the Vodou doll with the pins and so forth that's representative of that Ikisi figure as well as other practices, and the Hoodoo, quote-unquote, doll-baby. And why do we call the Hoodoo doll-baby, and what do we utilize that for? So the whites and their offspring have once again attempted to misrepresent the definitions of these things, just like they tried to say that the term hoodoo is Irish or Jewish or some other ridiculous notion. We prove conclusively that that's absolutely false and perverse. Now we're going to get into the Hoodoo Doll-Baby. Look at the article, Hoodoo Doll-Baby, AKUABA, Continuity of Akan Culture in North America. And in the image, you'll see 6 different versions of an AKUABA, as we call them on Akan culture, Akua or AKUABA. The first 3 are from the continent. Asante version, as well as the Fanti versions, the Asante Akan people. Asante are a subgroup of the Akan people. The Fanti are a subgroup of the Akan people. So those first 3, the first 2 are from the Asante people. The third one is a Fanti version of the Akua. The next 3 are from North America. The first 2 of those next 3 are found in North America during the Enslavement era, showing that we were still creating these AKUABA figures. And then the third one is a contemporary one that was just created recently by one of the Fanti people in North America as well. So we say in the above image, we have variations of the Akua or AKUABA as known in the Akan culture of Ghana and Ivory Coast, with Afuraka, Africa. The AKUABA is often referred to as a fertility doll. While the Akua or AKUABA is used by Akan people to assist women with fertility, it is also used for funerary purposes and ritual purposes with regard to healing, as well as the offensive and defensive use of medicine, meaning for attacks upon enemies and defense against the spiritual attacks from enemies. So you can utilize, for example, medicine to heal people. You can utilize herbs. You can utilize mineral life, plant life, and so forth to heal people's illnesses. But you can also use plant life and mineral life to poison, to kill, to wage chemical and biological warfare on one person or mass, poisoning the water supply, food supply, and hitting thousands of people. We have the offensive and defensive use of medicine to heal ourselves and kill our enemies. And we've been doing that for thousands of years. And that's a brilliant practice. So when we talk about that physiologically, you can do that with medicine. The same thing is true ritually. We have ritual practices we use to incorporate divine law and realign ourselves with order, but we also engage in ritual practice to wage war against our enemies. So we have the offensive and defensive use of medicine. And the Akua is used for both fertility as well as for military. The Akua or AKUABA can thus be found on the shrines of Abosom, deity, and Nsamanfo, ancestral spirit, as well as used in the form of Nsumai, talismans among Akan people. This is a ritual practice, as we said, which is thousands of years old. So it's not only, when you often see it, learn about the Akua or AKUABA doll specifically, you see the little doll that's in the form of the ancient Ankh. And Ankh or Anku in ancient Kemet, Unkwa in Akan means life, Ankh, Ankwa in ancient Kemet means life. The same word, same concept, and the Ankh itself is the form of the Anku or Akua in the Akan language. We have two books. One book, Ankh, The Origin of the Term Yoga, where we prove that conclusively, showing that the Ankh and the Akua are the same. We go into detail about the origin of the term yoga or yonka, coming from Ankh and so forth. But then we also have Karakasa, the origin and nature of the chakras. So that one book, we deal with that. But specifically in our article, as we link here, on the Abosom Akua, the deity Akua, the goddess Akua. She's popularly called Akua in the Akan language, the wife of Awuku. She is called Nebet Het, the wife of Set in ancient Kemet. She's called Agberu, the wife of Eshu in the Yoruba tradition. She's called Koni Koni, the wife of Legba in the Vodou tradition. Her symbol is that Akua. This is Akua Ba, the child Ba of Akua. In the Akan story, you will find that the story about the Akua Ba, the child of Akua, the woman, she was not able to have children. She was infertile. She went to a priest, a specialist. She got medicine. He carved the Akua doll. He gave the Akua doll to the sister Akua, and of course put the medicine on the doll, on the figure, and she was told to carry that doll just like you would carry a child on her back. She would wear the child on her back, take care of the doll, and so forth. Eventually, she became pregnant. She became fertile once again, and she was able to give birth. But before that, in the story, they would say that the people at first, when she had the doll and she had it tied to her back and so forth and was carrying it around just like a baby, people would laugh and say, that's AKUABA, that's Akua's Aba, Akua's child. The term Aba means child or offspring, baby, and so forth in the Akan language. So AKUABA means the Ba, the child of Akua. So they said, oh, look at AKUABA, look at Akua's child. But then she became fertile. And then after that took place and she had a baby, that became the standard practice. If someone was infertile, they would carry the akua with them. They would go to a spiritualist, have one prepared ritually, and they would carry that akua for that talisman until it fertilized their womb. That same story is told in ancient Kemet, because akua is the divinity Nebuchadnezzar. We prove that etymologically and conceptually in our article on Nebuchadnezzar, akua. When you learn about Nebuchadnezzar, they would say at first she was not able to give birth, and Set was not able to impregnate akua. But then later on, she was able to give birth to the divinity Anpu, the jackal-headed divinity Anpu, which is her son. That same story you'll find in the Akan tradition in its own manifestation. So that's talking about fertility. But akua, or Nebuchadnezzar, also has funerary functions. Her funerary functions dealing with assisting the individual who makes his or her transition to navigate their way from the after-death state to the ancestral realm without getting caught up in a negative situation, without getting caught up earthbound. So some people make their transition and they're accepted and guided by their nananom insamafo, their spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors, into the ancestral realm. And just like when you have a dream and you dream about your ancestresses and ancestors, or you're living amongst them or communicating with them in a positive fashion, that is akin to the after-death state, communicating and living with them in that fashion. But some people don't move in that direction. Some people are still upset or anxious or depressed and so forth, have gone through a number of different things. They're spiritually discordant, and their spirits end up hanging around the place where they died, where they were murdered, and so forth, and they're still depressed. It's like a homeless person depressed out on the street. This is a spirit that's homeless, depressed, earthbound, hanging around, and so forth. And the only other kind of spirits that they interact are other ones who are depressed or criminal and so forth in a negative situation. Akua, or Nebuchadnezzar, helps to guide the person, the individual, from that perilous, so to speak, journey from the after-death state through the funerary practices up to the ancestral realm to be accepted by the Nananom and Samampo, so they don't get caught up as a quote-unquote homeless spirit, wayward spirit, a trend spirit, as we call it in Akan tradition, earthbound, wayward, and suffering, and then affecting other people in the physical world negatively because they're suffering spiritually. So she deals with funerary practice. But she is also called Ur, or Ura Hekau in ancient Kemet, the great one of divine words, ritual incantations, and Ura Hekau becomes Awura Kua in Akan tradition. That is a praise name of Akua, as well as anybody born on Wednesday, a female, she would be called Akua. One of the praise names is Awura Kua, Awura meaning the great one, an honorific title, and then Akua. So Awura Kua is derived from Ura Hekua in ancient Kemet, the great one, Ura of Hekau, divine words, ritual incantations, and so forth. And that's talking about not only healing, but also waging war, the offensive and defensive aspects of not only physical medicine, but spiritual medicine. So we don't just use the Akua or AKUABA as a fertility doll. That's one application. The other application is using the Akua, plural, Nkwa, as funerary ritual statues. So when people make their transition, you have an Nkwa placed sometimes outside of the village, at the entrance of the village or the home, sometimes in the home. They're giving food offerings and so forth once the person makes their transition, because it's a shrine for the deceased, the newly deceased individual. So that's the fertility function and the funerary function. Just like in ancient Kemet, you will see that the deities place the Ankh or the Ankwa to the nose of the person to enliven them, to fertilize them, to give them life. But then they also place the Ankh to the nose of the deceased to enliven them and realign them with order so they can make their transition in a harmonious fashion. And you will see Nebuchadnezzar, Akua, as well as Offset, there in the spirit realm, guiding the person to the, first of all, to the weighing of the heart and so forth. And when they pass that test, to the presence of All-Star, so they can live in harmony with the ancestral community in a proper fashion. So you have the fertility function, the funerary function. But then you also have the Awurakua, or Hekau, the great one of divine words, ritual incantations, waging chemical, biological warfare, but also spiritual warfare through projecting spiritual ritual energy offensively and defensively for protection, for waging war. So this is why in the Akan tradition as well, beyond the fertility function and the funerary function, you will also see these Akua or Nkwa, AKUABA, so-called figures, dolls, and so forth, on the shrines of deities. You will see them on the shrines of the Nananom, Nsumafo, and Nsumafo, the ancestresses and ancestors. You will also see them with the shrines for Nsumai, discarnate spirits that may or may not be direct blood relatives and so forth, and they are used for those ritual practices as well, outside of the fertility and funerary function. So this is why we say, with regard to having them, using them on shrines of the Abosom, the deities, of the ancestral spirits, and the Nsumine spirit, all three of these ritual uses continue to be employed by our Akan people as we were forced into North America during the Mmusuo Kese, the Great Perversity, the Enslavement era. As we have shown in our publication, and again, so we show in Ancient Kemet, fertility function, funerary function, but also under her title, Awurakau or Ur-Hakau, the great one of divine words, ritual incantations, offensive and defensive practice. Then we have that in the Akan tradition, fertility functions, funerary functions, but also the offensive and defensive functions spiritually, ritually, by having them on the shrines of the deities, the ancestral spirits, and the Nsumine spirit. In North America, it was the same process. Fertility functions, funerary functions, but also with respect to offensive and defensive medicine. So as we have shown in our publication, Hoodoo people, Afurakanu, Afurakainu, Africans of North America, Akan custodians of Hoodoo from ancient Hoodoo or Ndunu land, Kanit, Nubia. Akan people brought our ancestral religion to North America during the Mmusuo Kese, and this ancestral religion is popularly called Hoodoo. We demonstrate that the term Hoodoo is the Akan term, meaning medicine, medicine from roots, plants, and also conjure. The ritual specialist called Oduyefo, Odunsinifo, as well as the Odumafo in Akan culture are literally defined in the language as root workers, root doctors, and conjurers. The Oduyefo, Du or Ndu means medicine. Nduru is, and Nuru in the Asante Akan dialect is Nuru. In the Akwamu and Equiapem Akan dialect is Nduru and Ndu. Ndu, the Akwamu dialect, is the one that remained in the Akan tradition in North America. So you have Ndu or Hoodoo. So the Oduyefo is the group of people, fo or folks, that the term fo means people in plural in the Akan tradition, very similar to the term folk or folk in English. So Oduyefo are the group of people, fo, who are Oduye, ye means to make, and Udu means medicine. So Oduyefo is the medicine making or the medicine making people, medicine working people. Ye means to make or work or to do. Oduyefo are the group of people, fo, who do or work, ye, make, ndu, medicine. Specifically from ndua or ndria, from trees, roots, plants, stumps. So they are literally the root, ndu, medicine, making or working, ye, people. Root working people, literally. Oduyefo, ritual specialist. Odun sinifo, Odu or ndu is the ritual medicine. Nsin means the trunk of a tree, plants and stalks and so forth. Odun sinifo, they'll say, well, that's just a physician, but also a sorcerer. That's how they define it. When they're defining it in English, it's talking about someone who takes the medicine ndu from the nsin, the trees, the stumps, plants, stalks, and so forth, and makes that medicine. Literally the root doctor, root worker, root doctor. Oduyefo is also called the Odumafo. Ma means to give. The group of people, fo, who give ma, ndu, medicine. So the Ndumafo is the Nduma. Nduma. people, the Undu Mafi. English, that's the Undu Man, and Undu Oman, or Undu Hoodoo Man, or Hoodoo Man, or Hoodoo Woman, the priest and the priest. So when you have a Hoodoo Man, or Hoodoo Woman, Hoodoo Man, Hoodoo Woman, you have Hoodoo Ma for Hoodoo Ma people, the Hoodoo giving people, the medicine giving people. So Hoodoo Mafo is the Hoodoo Man and Hoodoo Woman, meaning we've had priests and priestesses of the same names with the same function in the Akan tradition in North America called Hoodoo, the exact same name and function in Akan religion on the continent. Of course, Ndu or Odu also means to conjure, to become heavy with the spirit, to bring the spirit down, for the spirit to descend. Ndu means that. It also means the exact same thing in ancient Kemet. So the Odu Yefo, in fact, Uduru also means gravity, that which is pulling things down. So the Odu Yefo is also the conjurer, the ones that pull the spirits down, pull down the spirits of the Abosom, pull down the spirits of the Nsamanfo, the ancestresses and ancestors, to activate the medicine in the roots, the medicine in the plant, and medicine in the mineral life and so forth. So root work, root doctor, root worker, but also conjurer. This is why Hoodoo is defined in English as either root work or conjure. They'll say, what do you practice? I practice conjure. What do you practice? Root work. That's what Hoodoo is. And it's literally, when you translate that in English to the Akan language, it's literally the same thing, and the root workers, root doctors, and so forth, are the Hoodoo Man, Hoodoo Mafo, Hoodoo Man, Hoodoo Woman, and so forth. So we have a priesthood, unbroken from ancient Kanit, Kemet, through the Akan culture, West Africa, to the Hoodoo Man and Hoodoo Woman, Hoodoo Mafo, in North America. We have not lost the tradition. And this tradition of priesthood and priesthood is passed down intergenerationally and transcarnationally through successive reincarnations through our blood circle. So we are not dependent on getting up and traveling to the Caribbean or traveling to Africa to get a tradition. It is passed down through our blood circle. Of course, we've gone into detail about that. We are assigned abosom, forces of nature, pre-incarnation, before we even enter into the womb. Nyame, the great mother and great father, assigned one of their children, the abosom, the divinities, to govern our head region as our head abosom, pre-incarnation. And there are patriclan and matriclan abosom that are connected to our blood circle. So when we come into the world, we come into the world with abosom assigned to us. And it is our responsibility to align with the abosom who are assigned to us. And we have Nsamanfo, Nananom Nsamanfo, spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors who are assigned to guide us as well by the Supreme Being, pre-incarnation. So when an Afurakani or Afurakani baby is born into the world in North America, we come into the world already assigned to abosom, assigned to Nananom Nsamanfo. That is our birthright. So no one can give you a divinity. No one can give you an association with a clan. You are born with that. You incarnate with that. So people have been taken advantage of, a great deal of money as well as control through misrepresentation. But we're correcting the record. So, as we say here, the woman, Hoodoo Man, Hoodoo Mafo, Hoodoo Man, Hoodoo Woman, here is the preservation of the Akan priesthood and priestesshood unchanged from West Africa to North America in name and function. This is why Hoodoo Ndu is defined as root work and conjure in North America. The Odun Sinifo and Odu Yefo in preparing medicines and ritual work for clients use the Akua or AKUABA in many applications. When we look at the definition of the term, we see the origin of the English translation, Doll-Baby, used by our Akan Nsamanfo, ancestresses and ancestors in North America. When we were forced to speak English to describe this figure, we used the English word that described exactly how we reference this figure in our traditional language. So we said Doll-Baby, Hoodoo Doll-Baby. So let's look at the term in the Akan language to see what they mean. So we have an excerpt from the Asante Fanti Dictionary that was published in the late 1800s and revised in the early so-called 1900s. An extensive dictionary where they connected with our people and got direct information as well as commentary, extensive commentary to give context to what these words actually meant in culture, in context, in ritual, and so forth. So akua, plural, nkwa, a human figure made of clay. And then they have a commentary entry talking about say onipa kesiebi titiriu ohini, and I'm going to go through the whole thing, but it's in translation, it is customary before the funeral ceremony to make figures or statues of the deceased, either of clay or wood, which are placed under a shed outside the town and honored daily by meat offerings. We talked about that earlier. We do that today very often. What we'll end up doing, even if we've gotten away from culture, but we have a remnant of it. Somebody makes that transition. The first thing we do is we get an image of them, a picture, and put it up on a mantle. Brothers of pour libation, pour beer on the corner for the brothers who aren't here and so forth. We're still communicating with our Nsamanto. So we're putting up an image of them to still connect with them and connect with their spirit. And then we, in dreams or even in the house, see that spirit still in the house. In the past, we will make a wooden sculpture for the person and then give food offerings, place it before the wooden sculpture. And the spirit will be drawn to that sculpture and feed off the energy emanating from the food, just like we feed off the physical aspect of the food. Giving offerings so we can stay connected, keep that communication. So that's the definition. Akua, a human figure made of clay, also of wood. Then, as we said earlier, Oba, offspring, child, son or daughter, baby. So when a baby is born, Oba. And of course, as we talked about previously, Ba also means life. So you have Oba is child, Oba is female, Oba ni or Oba nini or Obadima is male. The root is Ba. Ba for child, Oba is short. Oba is a high tone and low tone, which is in for a female, and then Obedima or Obani for male. When we talked about the sounds of the abosom, the nature of their birth name, we talked about the names of the divinities and just our language itself. We don't have a few words in our languages that are words of power or quote-unquote mantras that they're called in Hindu and so forth, and certain words carry power and other ones don't. All of the words in Afurakani ancestral languages have mantric value because they're all connected to the abosom. How the abosom moves through creation. When spirits move through creation, move through space, they generate sound. Just like if you have a rope and you whip it around in the air and it creates a whistling sound. If you pull a string taut and pluck the string and it vibrates, movement generates sound based on the nature and the form and the volume of the spiritual force. It generates a collection of vibrations unique unto its form and its movement in creation. Its unique movement in creation. When you replicate those sounds, the way that spirit is moving through creation, you replicate their actual name. And it's the same thing with the way we label things, because we just replicate the sound that the spirit makes. So Oba, meaning child, Oba, female, Obani, male. The root is Ba, and that's the explosion of energy. Ba, when there's an explosion of energy coming forth and being born. When the child comes out of the womb, there's a Ba, an explosion. That's why Ba also means to come forth, to happen. Ba or Bara also means life, existence. And that goes back, that's in the Akan language, that goes back to ancient Kemet. The term Ba is the human-headed bird, the divine living energy, the life spirit of the individual, the Ba. Ra and Ra'et, the creator and creatress, are called the great Ba and the great Ba'et, the explosion of energy, Ba, explosion of light and fire on the black substance of space. At the beginning of creation is the explosion of Ra and Ra'et, and the way they move is through that rolling, expansive, and contractive energy, and so they are Ra and Ra'et. But they are the great Ba, the great living energy in creation, the great Ba and Ba'et. So Oba means child, And this is where we give that cosmology to show that there's a reason why we utilize these terms. So Akua is the figure made of wood or clay and so forth. Ba, offspring or child. And then we have the next entry in the dictionary, AKUABA, a kind of doll carved out of wood. It can also be carved out of clay. So Akua being the doll, Ba meaning the child. AKUABA, doll, child, doll, baby. So when we say a Hoodoo Doll-Baby, we're saying NDU and AKUABA, Doll-Baby, literally. So when we translated what we were doing into English, we had to find the English words that equal AKUABA, which is doll-baby. So when we asked in English, what is this English word during enslavement? How do you say Akua? How do you say this figure? How do you say a child, offspring? Well, in English, that's doll, and then that's baby. So we call it the Hoodoo Doll-Baby. That's what we call it. So we're showing the direct linguistic evidence of Akan people translating our practices. Now, we go through that. That's on page 2. And we also show the link to the article on Akua Nebet. We show that the Ankh, of course, of ancient Khanid and Kemet, Nubian Egypt, and the AKUABA of Akan culture is the same figure. We talk about our migrations that deal with that. And some of this information we show images of the Akua and then the Ankh as well. And then we show an Ankh with 2 arms, and the 2 arms of the Ankh and hands are holding 2 scepters, 2 wasp scepters. The reason we show that is because many times people will see an Ankh, but they're not aware that sometimes, very often, Ankhs are shown not just with the 2 little straight bars out, but arms with hands on the end. Sometimes you see Ankhs with arms as well as legs. That proves, especially when you see those, what they will call anthropomorphized Ankh, instead of 2 straight bars, but arms with hands on the end, as well as arms and legs walking around. You see the Ankh walking around with arms and legs, assisting the Mmusuo, the king, and so forth. That proves once again that this Akua or Nkwa, this Ankh figure, this Akua figure in the Akan tradition, which is the figure of a person with a head and arms and everything else, and sometimes the variations with the arms and the legs and the hands and so forth and feet, is the same symbol. Some people put forth the notion that the Ankh, the loop, is the female womb, and the shaft is the male phallus, and the 2 arms are the testicles of the male and so forth, and that's the union of the male and female. And of course, that's not accurate, because when you see the anthropomorphized Ankh with the arms and hands in the same position as the Akua in Akan culture, you will see that this is the same figure. You'll also see, and we mentioned this in another broadcast, that first of all, Akua Nebet, the wife of Set. So you'll see that Geb and Nut, earth and sky, give birth to Asar, Set, Set, and Nebet, 2 sets of twins. So Set and Nebet, or Awuku and Akua, as we call them in Akan, are children of Geb and Nut. Geb and Nut are children of Shu and Tefnut. Shu and Tefnut are children of Atim and Asaset, Nebet-hetepet, and Atim and Asaset, Nebet-hetepet are children of Ra and Ra'et. Ra and Ra'et are children of Nun and Nunet, and Nun and Nunet are children of Amen and Amenet. So Nebet-het, who is the wife of Set, she's also the nurse mother of Heru, the sister of Set. She's the great-great-great-great-granddaughter of Amen and Amenet, the great father and the great mother. Amenet is the great mother. But Akua Nebet-het is the great-great-great-great-granddaughter of the great mother. However, when you see these variations of Nebet-het as the AKUABA figure, sometimes she has a straight body, like the common AKUABA figure you see in these this document, but sometimes her body is more rounded. Her stomach is more full, showing, pregnancy and fertility and so forth, and her hips are more round and full and so forth, but she still has some short arms, and then sometimes she has the full arms and she's holding and touching her breast, showing that when she's touching her breast, she's showing she is the nurse mother. She's the wet nurse of Heru. She's that excretory function. She governs the renal system, but also excretory function. The renal system is the kidneys and the bladder that excrete and so forth, but also maintains fluid balance in the body, mineral balance in the body. The breast excreting milk, that's an excretory function. That lactation is an excretory function. You see her connected to the dark clouds, kusu, the dark clouds and so forth, clouds full of rain, and she governs the rain waters of earth, so of course she's connected to the dark clouds in ancient Kemet, the dusky one, the dark clouds and so forth, as well as in Akan culture, that's one of her titles, Mmusuo, the dark water and so forth, because those dark clouds mean they're about to excrete, they're about to lactate, they're about to release. So just like she can excrete through the clouds, excrete through the breast, excrete through the kidneys and so forth, the excretion is not only excreting milk and to feed, but then she also has that energy. She can excrete, can deal with offensive and defensive medicine. The energy she excretes can be to heal people. The energy she can excrete is to kill the enemy and so forth. So we deal with that and we talk about her functions in that particular article. We link to that there. So the next piece is we show these images, 5 images. We say in the above image we have 2 AKUABA figures from the Asante Akan people, and we show those 2 figures. One is with the straight AKUABA without the legs and the straight body. Then the second version in the Asante version is very similar, except that instead of having a straight up and down body, the stomach is wider and more full, showing that fertility, and then you see the actual 2 legs. Then the third figure is one of the fancy versions. And sometimes we have the straight body, and sometimes we have the body with the legs and arms. The difference here is, with the Asante version here, you see the 2 arms without the hand sticking straight out. In the fancy version, you see the 2 arms sticking out, but you see the little fingers carved in at the end. And then you also see the 2 legs. Now, that is critical. That's important because the next one, you see right next to that, letter D, you also see the 2 arms sticking out with the little fingers carved in, and you see the 2 legs. So that's akin to the fancy version of the Akua. The difference is letter D, that is the Akua that was found in Virginia on a plantation in the 12,700s of the so-called 1700s, nearly 300 years ago. This is an Akua that was fashioned by the hands of one of our Akan ancestresses on a plantation in Virginia. This is one of the figures. So this is an ancestral Akan Akua figurine. We were still fashioning them in North America. This is direct evidence of the Akan presence in North America, on earth, rising back up. Our ancestresses and ancestors manifesting themselves and manifesting their culture. Just as we have shown in previous broadcasts, when you see the Adinkra symbols, which are Akan symbols, all throughout the ironwork, gates and doors and so forth, and ironwork all throughout the southeast United States and into the north and northeast and so forth, wherever we were enslaved. We were not just enslaved on plantations because we were master iron workers and metal workers and so forth. We were forced to work in blacksmith shops and ironworks and everything else, and we left our imprint, so you will see Adinkra symbols woven into these ironworks all over wherever black people were enslaved in America. We left that imprint. We left that imprint of kente cloth, which is another Akan specific cultural motif in the textile, the specific manner in which we use that strip cloth to convey proverbs and teaching, as well as ritual energy and so forth, with the different colors. Every color has a specific energetic configuration and output. Every pattern has a specific proverb associated with it. Energy connected to it affects the spirit of the person, the sum of the person in a specific manner, so the cloth is literally talking. The specific energetic emanations coming from blue or orange or yellow or red, or the various combinations, we put those together just like you put words together, put notes together in a song or words together in speech. colors together in a painting and so forth, the different energy emanation coming from darker colors all the way up to the lighter colors. There's different rates of vibration. We put those different colors together to create a set of speech, a quote-unquote song, ritual prayer. So the cloth is literally speaking. When you attune to these patterns, you can hear the speech of the cloth, of the kente. And the same is true of the adinkra. The specific geometric patterns are matrices. They are abosom nkomre, nsama nkomre, ancestral shrines, deity shrines. They're no different than Veves and Vodou. They have the capacity of geometric forms to pull down energy configurations, pull down abosom and nsamafo and so forth. This is why we use adinkra symbols to speak. We use kente cloth to speak, and we utilize, of course, our ancestors, our idols, and so forth to speak. So just like we have these motifs that manifest in Akan culture in North America and Hoodoo, you'll find the adinkra symbols all over the place, Akan people leaving their mark. You'll find kente cloth in the form of the prolific quilts that our grandmothers and great-grandmothers were making, the same strips of cloth. We modified the practice. We didn't have looms on the plantation, so we would just take strips of cloth and still create those same patterns that we used to use, and those prolific quilts that you would see the grandmothers and great-grandmothers making, coming from that tradition. And you can delineate specific kente patterns coming from those that quilt making. Of course, other groups make quilts as well, but then the adinkra symbols and the kente cloth patterns are specific of each kente cloth pattern has specific proverbs associated with it, so much so that people can see a specific pattern and say, oh, that's Pignon Conton. Oh, that's Oba time and so forth, and oh, this is that and this is that. They know which one is which. So, and we have that. The same is true of the AKUABA, the doll baby used in Hoodoo, used for offensive medicine, used for defensive medicine. Where we would have wooden figures, then we would put the medicine in the grooves of the wooden figure, in parts of the body of the wooden figure, and just like when the person was trying to assist the woman, Akua, to become pregnant, putting the medicine, first putting the doll on the shrine, charging the doll up, so to speak, putting the medicine on the doll, on the body of the doll, into the body of the doll, and then giving the doll, the Akua, to the client and so forth. We've always done that. So you see evidence here of one of these ancestral Akua from Virginia, nearly 300 years old. That particular one that you see, letter D, is one, as we say in the article, is in the possession now of Akwamu Mine, Amaruka Adipimudi Akwamu Nation in North America. We found that particular one online and saw that someone was auctioning that, and they called it an African American slave doll. They did not know what they had. We recognized it immediately because our Nsamafo directed us to look for an ancestral Akan Akua from North America. And once we looked, we found that one immediately. They were selling it for a very high price. As a matter of fact, one of our Nananom Mpanyifo, one of the eldresses, honored eldresses in our network, saw it, that, we found that one and actually acquired it. And then we were just presented with that at a ritual in Philadelphia this past weekend, and that Akua is in the possession of the Akwamu Nation in North America for the benefit of Ojiraman, for the Afurakan, the purified nation of Afurakani and Afrakani people in the Western Hemisphere. And we utilize the term Ojiraman, the purified nation, for all Afurakani and Afrakani people in North America, Central America, South America, the Caribbean, and Europe, who are descendant of those who were forced into the Western Hemisphere as a result of the Mmusuo Kese. We have been raised up in the Western Hemisphere, this region of Asase. We have a collective identity, having been raised in the land of the setting sun in the Western Hemisphere of the Earth Mother, not talking about the political structure of America, but the Western region of the Earth Mother. Every region of the Earth Mother has its own energy. We have been in the Western region of her, so we have a collective identity forged through our experiences, our blending of blood circles, and taking up residence in this region of Asase Afua. We have a collective identity that is interdependent upon the collective identity of our Afurakani brothers and sisters on the continent as well as wherever we are in the world. So we have our own collective identities, but then we come together as one group as Afurakani people. So the Afurakani people are African people in the Western Hemisphere. We designate as Ojida mind, the purified Jida nation mind in the West mind. We have a page on that showing those terms in the Medusa in the hieroglyphs, and we utilize this term, of course, instead of using the term diaspora, which is talking about those who are dispersed, and it points back to the fictional cartoon characters, Hebrews who never existed, and the dispersal of fictional Hebrews, which never happened. So we really don't need to utilize a term that has no basis in reality. We utilize a term that actually defines us, Ojida mind nu, plural, and in our column we say Ojida mind fo, the group of people fo who are Ojida mind, but in the language of ancient Kemet. Ojida mind nu, meaning the people, plural, of Ojida mind, the purified nation in the West. So we acquired that ancestral Akan, Akua. This is an ancestral shrine connected to the ancestors who carved it with her hands, also to her family and the Abosom connected to her, and of course we are related to her as Akan people. All Akan people are related. So this is one of our direct blood ancestresses, direct sculptures, Akua ritual implements that we have reclaimed, unearthed, and reclaimed for our Akan family in the Western Hemisphere, but also for the larger Afurakani family in the Western Hemisphere. Taking it out of the hands of the whites and offspring and return to the rightful inheritors, and inheritresses as well. So that's what letter D, the one above letter D. Letter E is another Akua found in Jekyll Island, Georgia, around the time of the Civil War in the late 12,800s or so-called 1800s. So we're showing a continuity of culture. We already talked about the Ankh, but then we show in West Afuraka, the Akua, different versions of that, and the Akua still being forged, carved, created in America for ritual purposes, and we have one of them in our possession now. Instead of going to the continent to get a shrine from someone and then bring it back and say we have brought the tradition back into our families, we go right in the soil, right in the dirt of North America and unearth one of our own shrines from our direct blood ancestresses and ancestors of our blood circle who never lost the tradition, and reestablish that shrine right in our families here. We are dependent on no one outside of our ancestral blood circles for our culture. And this is a manifestation of that. And others of our people can do that. If you're Yoruba, Bon, Ebe, whatever group you come from, you can participate in that same process within your own families as well. This is why we say what we therefore have is the Akan Ndu AKUABA, the Hoodoo Doll-Baby. On the plantation, it should be noted that the Akan term Kua also means plantation. On their plantations in America, when we were not able to use the red clay, we're not able to carve the wooden figures, because they wouldn't always let us have sharp objects and so forth, and we weren't able to get away and sneak a sharp object away and go and carve a wooden figure. Some of us were not able to do that. Every now and then somebody would be able to get away with that. When we were not able to use the red clay, or we didn't have access to that, or if it was snowing, this is a brand new situation for us. We're forced to North America, and then we come in contact with this. What is this new condition where all of a sudden, a few months ago, it was 90 degrees out, it was hot, like normal. All of a sudden, weeks pass, the days seem to be coming shorter, the Orius, the sun is not out as long, and then this white stuff is falling out of the sky, and we're freezing. What is this condition of being cold? What is it? We didn't have access to the clay. We didn't have access to being able to carve wood, but we still needed to use our akua. So we used what we had in our possession during the winter times and other situations where we weren't able to access material. And the only thing that we were able to use was the fabric from our own clothes, tearing pieces of fabric off our own clothes and fashioning an AKUABA with the fabric and sewing that AKUABA together. And so we show a contemporary AKUABA sewn fabric from one of our connections here in North America. A Fanti sister in North America fashioned this specific akua for a ritual purpose to assist a specific individual in a specific way spiritually to overcome some negative energy. So we show that as well. So we use what we had at our disposal. We would just use the fabric to sew these AKUABA doll babies and place the nduru, the medicine, inside of the sewed fabric doll baby, the AKUABA, as opposed to attaching or affixing the ndu medicine to the wooden or clay figure or placing the ndu or the medicine in the carved lines, scarification of the body of the wooden figure, the grooves in the body of the wooden figure, as we would do traditionally. So we could put the medicine in the grooves of the wooden figure, attach it to the body, put the medicine all over the body of the wooden figure. But once we had these, we had to begin to use fabric, like in the wintertime and so forth, then we would place the medicine inside the fabric and stuff it inside the AKUABA fabric, AKUABA doll, the doll baby. So we show that. The tradition of utilizing the akua or AKUABA for ritual purposes to assist in fertility, making babies, doll baby, making babies and so forth, or to attack, to heal and to defend, is an Akan tradition that is thousands of years old and unbroken even through the horrors of enslavement. This includes the Akan tradition of a ritually prepared AKUABA being carried like a living baby on the back of the female to cure fertility issues, through the practice of the AKUABA used as a sumain, a talisman to do work against someone. So we've proven that linguistically, ritually, cosmologically, and true historically, even to the extent that we have found one of these AKUABA or doll babies that's hundreds of years old that is now in our possession, our ancestral heirloom, as well as showing a contemporary akua made of fabric where the medicine is placed inside. Now, after we've understood all of that, and this is part of our culture, easily identifiable in detail, the whites and their offspring of spirits of disorder continue to deliberately lie about the origins of the Hoodoo Doll-Baby, attempting to associate it with the puppet of European culture. So what the whites and their offspring say, when you type in Hoodoo Doll-Baby online or Conjure Doll online, what you will find is the whites and their offspring deliberately lie. Every one of them knows it's a lie, and this is why they tell it. They say it's called a puppet, so-called puppet, but a puppet, P-O-P-P-E-T, and they say it actually comes from European or Germanic folk magic. And the Germanic-speaking people used to use the puppet, and then they would stick medicine inside, and they brought that tradition to North America with them. And then black people in North America who were enslaved, they learned about using puppet dolls and placing medicine in them from the Germans and other whites. And then they incorporated it into hoodoo and then started calling it a Hoodoo Doll-Baby. So we learned that from the crack. So these perverse beasts are liars, as always, trying to steal the tradition. And we, as we said earlier, some of these idiots would say that hoodoo is a word from Ireland, and it's part of the, Gaelic, the Irish, language and so forth. Or they'll say it comes from Judeo or Judeo, or always trying to tie back to fictional cartoon character Jew, which is idiotic. So we've exposed their lies in detail. So when you share with our people, whites and offspring are absolute liars, and they say, well, that's not true. This isn't the 60s, and you can't say that about all the whites and offspring. All they have to do is investigate what we're saying. The whites and offspring continue to lie about hoodoo, they lie about Vodou and everything else. They lie about the identity of the people of ancient Kemet. And then we can show in our publications and others as well, for example, the identity of the people of ancient Kemet being unmixed Afurakani people. You can see that clearly, no debating. And then you look at the text published by the whites and their offspring up to this very day, and they're still lying about the race of the people of ancient Kemet. What we say about them being spirits of disorder, habitual liars, of course, is proven by them every day. So we don't have to just use conjecture or trying to convince our people. We can show it side by side so they can see for themselves. And this is just one example of that. So, as we say, we have the linguistic, cosmological, and ritual roots. So we've proven the linguistic roots. We've shown the cosmological roots going back to who Akua is in ancient Kemet, Nebuchadnezzar, doing fertility and funerary practices, as well as ritual incantation, offensive and defensive medicine as Hekau, Awura Hekau, and Awura Akua and Akan, the linguistic proof, the cosmological proof, the ritual roots of the Hoodoo Doll-Baby, the NDU, AKUABA in our culture and practice, while many, which destroys everything the whites and offspring say. Well, and some of them will try to say it has to do with pseudo-Native Americans who are just criminal agents who invaded this hemisphere and came in contact with us when we were already here before they existed in the world. And of course, they waged war against our people. So they've been our enemies all along. So they have nothing to do with Hoodoo. The whites and offspring would say, well, Hoodoo is a mixture of African American folk magic and European folk magic and Native American folk magic. That is nonsense. That's a lie. Hoodoo is the Akan religion. And Akan people brought their religion in total to North America and called it Hoodoo. Some brainwashed people hundreds of years later interacting with the whites and their offspring, interacting with pseudo-Native Americans, no different than some of our people who practice Vodou, Fon and Ebe speaking people. If they interacted with the whites and their offspring and began to include white saint images into Vodou and trying to use Catholicism with Vodou, the Loa, the deities, and the ancestral spirits never sanctioned that practice ever. They never told us to hide our deities under the white saints. They never told us to do that. They specifically told us not to do that. And those who did not do that, for example, at the ceremony of Kaman, when Bukman said throw away the image of the white men, fake deity and so forth, they were talking about all of the white images. Get that Catholic nonsense the hell out of here. Deal with our real divinities, the forces in nature. And once they embraced that reality, they waged war and defeated the French army. In the same fashion, you talk about Lukumi and Candomblé and so forth, the Orisha, the Vodou, they never sanctioned the utilization of white saints ever, so-called saints. Only the brainwashed amongst our people engage that practice. Many of our people never engage that practice and never will. The same is true of Hoodoo in North America. Those people who became Protestant, engaged in Protestant Christianity, they started pulling in the Bible and all that nonsense and looking at the Psalms and all this other foolishness and utilizing so-called spiritism and numerology and all of this misinformation and trying to weave that into the fabric of the Akan religion of Hoodoo and began to corrupt it. So brainwashed people amongst our people engage that process, and that's when things become corrupt. But in reality, that is not part of the practice. Some people polluting themselves by interacting with pseudo-Native Americans, with migrant Asians, polluting our practice by interacting with these individuals. They are not our ancestors and ancestors. They're not our relations. Anytime they entered our blood circles, it was through pollution, through perversion. Only brainwashed black people who would mix with non-Afurakani people. A conscious black person today or thousands of years ago would never pollute themselves by copulating with an Asian, a migrant Asian, because they know their spirits of disorder. Only the brainwashed amongst our people did so. And it's a very small percentage. As a matter of fact, when you look at the genome studies, the human genome studies, it exploded many of these myths because a lot of black people like to believe because they're brainwashed and they think light skin and straight hair is superior. They want to believe that they have quote-unquote Native American ancestry because they feel proud about that pollution. these spirits of disorder, though that enhances our blood circle. That only pollutes our blood circle. So everybody you ask, people to raise their hands who has Native American ancestry, 90% of the people throw their hands up. And they base it upon somebody in the family with lighter skin, and they had straighter hair, and they had high cheekbones, so to speak, and a straight nose. In reality, when you look at the actual numbers with regard to genetics, you'll find that less than 6% of our people had any of that pollution. So the vast majority of the time, when people had somebody in the family with a lighter skin or straighter hair and so forth, it was because of the rape of the Eurasian, the Western Eurasian, as opposed to the Eastern Eurasian. Either way, it's still perverse. But the vast majority of our people do not have that so-called pseudo-Native American ancestry. And that myth has been exploded through the study of our genome. So some of our people who got involved in Protestantism, they began to incorporate that nonsense. And then even some of our people who got involved in Catholicism, smaller percentage of black people in North America became involved in Catholicism. Most black people who got corrupted with Christianity in North America became Protestants. So they began to fuse Protestant so-called Christianity and talking about the Holy Spirit and all of that nonsense to corrupt the Akan religion of Hoodoo. That is not part of our tradition. Utilizing the Bible is not part of our tradition. That is corruption, that's perverse, that's filth. And when you look at our Kuku to assume the ancestral jurisdiction, we prove that Jesus and Moses and Muhammad and Abraham and Isaac and Ishmael and Solomon, Sheba, Menelik, Allah, Yahweh, Buddha, Brahman characters are fictional cartoon characters who never existed of any form or of any race whatsoever. So we do not use the Bible and anything associated with the Bible or Christianity or Islam or so-called Judaism or so-called Hebrewism. Hebrews never existed. We are not descendant from any fictional cartoon character Hebrews who never existed. They were not black. They were not white. They did not exist at all. And we've proven that conclusively in our book, Kuku Tuntum, and other articles as well. But that's not part of Hoodoo. Pseudo-Native Americanism, the discarnate, perverse spirits of white Asians that they will say masquerading as the spirit of the wind and the great father spirit and the great mystery and Thunderbird and all of this, that has nothing to do with anything. All they're dealing with is their deceased criminal Asian invader relatives and passing them off as nature spirits, which they are not. That is not part of our tradition. That is not part of the Akan religion. The Akan religion deals with the great mother and great father, deities of creation, and our direct blood ancestors and ancestors. And just like every other Afurakani group. And only Afurakani people can be possessed by and communicate with the forces in nature. The whites and offspring are spirits of disorder, just like cancer cells in the body. And cancer cells in the body are pushed away from the other cells, isolated, and eventually destroyed. They're not fed and nourished and taken care of and repaired and reintegrated back into the body. They are destroyed. They are not served. You, as a great body, do not seek to communicate with the cancer cells in your body and help them out. You send your immune system cells to kill them. The Supreme Being, the Great Mother and Great Father, do not possess and communicate with the white spirits of disorder, white Asians, white pseudo-Native Americans, white Hispanics, and so forth. They isolate these criminal spirits and direct their children, us, to eradicate them, and that is what's taking place. And over time, they will no longer exist. Their numbers are already shrinking. The whites and offspring are less than 1/10 of the world population. For example, the white Western European, white Western Eurasian, less than so-called Caucasian, less than 1/10 of the world population, and their population birth rate or growth rate is at negative. There are more of them being dying than being born, and that's been going on for decades. So that Western Eurasian is disappearing from the planet as we speak. And the same is going to happen with the Eastern Eurasian as well, and we will accelerate that process. So this is why we say as a final part of this piece, the whites and their offspring have sought to steal and denigrate African ancestral religious legacy of Hoodoo which is Akan, Vodou, which is found in Eve, and Juju, which is the Yoruba tradition in North America. Juju is a Yoruba word for people outside of people traveling to Cuba or traveling to Nigeria, traveling to South America and stuff like that and getting shrines and so forth. The Yoruba tradition was already in North America. The Orisha tradition was already in North America. It was brought in the blood circles of our people who were forced into North America. And it was popularly called Juju. That's a Yoruba term. So just like the phone in Ebe brought Vodou, Akan people brought Hoodoo, Yoruba people brought Juju. So when people would say, so-and-so is practicing that Juju, originally they were talking about that's a Yoruba person. So the Yoruba people already had a tradition. We didn't have to go somewhere and get initiated to a tradition. It was already in our blood cells. Some of our people left that alone and felt they needed to go somewhere else. But if you look in your blood circles, Juju was already there. The Orisha tradition was already there. And the only way you are legitimizing your ancestral religious practices through your direct blood circles anyway. So anything coming outside of that is just extra and supplemental. But it's not central. It's peripheral. So the Western offspring seek to denigrate anything associated with Hoodoo, Vodou, Juju, and so forth in North America because it was and is through Hoodoo, Vodou, Juju, and so forth, and other manifestations, Gullah Geechee traditions, and so forth, that we were empowered to wage war against the whites unceasingly, massacre them, and force them into the position of accepting abolition and emancipation. We will not cease to expose these lies and to preserve our culture, which is and always will be transmitted through the spiritugenetic blood circles of Apurakanu, Apurakainu only. So this is that publication we just recently published this weekend. And then very briefly, we can check out the other publication, just a 2-page publication specifically on the AKUABA, the Hoodoo Doll that we recently received. And we'll go through that quickly. And before we get to that, 10:52, there are 8 minutes left. Well, a little bit less than 8 minutes left in the broadcast as far as online. But if you want to listen beyond 11 o'clock, then you must call in and get on the phone line before it hits 11 o'clock, because once 11 o'clock hits, then online you won't be able to hear anymore. But if you're on the phone line, you'll be able to hear the show beyond 11. The call-in number is 657-383-0635, 657-383-0635, and now you have 6.5 minutes to call in. All right, so we're going to get to this 2-page document real quick, and then we're going to get on the phone line and the chat room for any questions. For individuals who are not able to stay on beyond 11, for tuning in. We thank you for tuning in. If you support the work that we are doing, please go to our publications page, the Homa page on our website. And we have published 16 books, over 60 articles. On the publications page, you'll see the 16 books. The ebook versions of all of our books are free downloads, so you can download them immediately for free. The softcover versions of our books we print ourselves in-house on our own printers in color. They range between $8 and $11. So there are 2 things. You can order one or more books between $8 and $11. Any order of 10 books or more is automatically 30% off. So sometimes people order the first 10 books of the 16-book set, and that first 10 books, for example, is $66. The entire 16-book set is $105, so there's less than $10 per book. So any order of 10 books or more is automatically 30% off. One or more books is between $8 and $11. And then we also have the monthly subscription option, where you can have a monthly subscription and receive one or more books per month on the same day every month, one or more of our softcover books. So, for example, a $15 donation, you receive one of our books per month. You can make a recurrent donation through PayPal on the publications page, the same page where you go to purchase the books. There's also a donation button. You hit that button, type in $15, and hit recurrent. And every month, PayPal will make that $15 donation for you, and you'll receive one of our books in the mail per month. We have 16 books out now, so at least for the next 16 months, or say if you had a higher donation and want to receive 2 books per month for the next 8 months, then that's automatic. And, of course, you can cancel whenever you want to. You just go in and click cancel in PayPal whenever you feel you want to cancel. So those are the different options, and yet I'll say for supporting the work that we are doing. And, again, as we said earlier, we will update everyone, hopefully by tomorrow, with regard to the venue we were trying to obtain to have this event this Saturday, September 19th, in the D.C. area. The third day of our 7-day New Year celebration, we're going to have a observance that you can come out to and participate in. So ritual observance and so forth, as well as the presentation. So we will keep you updated on that, but connect with us on Facebook and so forth for that update. Also, connect with us on our Ning site, afuraka-ning.ning.com for any updates so you can be on our list. That's for the people who have to leave right now. So let's go through this two-page document, and then we'll go. And we touched on much of it already. We just show the actual image of this specific Ndu AKUABA, this Hoodoo AKUABA that we acquired, and it was presented to us ritually. And yet I say we thank the individuals of the Nanasom Teku, the Ancestral Religion Study Group in Philadelphia. We connected with the members this weekend. We started the Nanasom Teku people starting study groups, Ancestral Religion Study Groups. We have a Teku page on our website. You can go to that page. We have a curriculum, our books in order, publications in order, a recommended curriculum where you start from, starting with the Gukutunsum. You can start a Teku Ancestral Religion Study Group with 1 or more people, in person and or online, wherever you are. When you start a Nanasom Teku and Ancestral Religion Study Group, that's your own independent group. You're not operating under us. But we do have a recommended curriculum. Anybody who starts a study group or participates in a study group with 1 or more people, you go to that Teku page. When you order the softcover books for your study group, and order for yourself, it's automatically 30% off whether it's 1 book or more. So you'll see that on the Teku page. So we said early on, months ago, that once people began to formulate these study groups, that we would begin to visit these study groups wherever you are. So the Nanasom Teku Ancestral Religion Study Group in Philly was the first one to form. There are others that have formed in New York and New Jersey and Louisiana, and something beginning to form in Florida and Tennessee and other places. So we will be visiting those groups, and whoever forms a group in your area, wherever you are in the country and different parts of the world, we will be connecting directly with. So we met up with the Nanasom Teku in Philly, and they presented us with this Ndu AKUABA that was carved by one of our ancestresses nearly 300 years ago, and she will be in the shrine of our center. We're working to establish the Akan shrine, our institution of learning, healing, training, employment, and entrepreneurship. We have had this institution. All of our books, all of our broadcasts, all of our publications, all of our workshops are born of our institution, which we founded in Chicago. We've been in D.C. for the past 6 years and continued that institution here. These broadcasts are born of that. We are working to establish a physical space for the institution so we can expand our services, our classes, beyond the broadcast. Also have the publishing arm so we can have employment opportunities in the center as well. So we have a fundraising campaign for that. You will see that on our website. And anytime you purchase a book, that also goes to assist that process as well. And she will be in the shrine. This AKUABA, this ritual AKUABA will be in the shrine at the center. So when people come to the center, they can see the ancestral shrine there. Also, any Afurakani person can see, this ancient ancestral Akan religious ritual implement from our ancestresses and ancestors here in North America. So, as we said earlier, the whites and their offspring just thought it was an African-American slave doll. They had no clue about what this particular ritual figure was and is. So one of our eldresses, Mpanyimfo, acquired the figure, and it's back in the possession of Afurakani people. So, and we just mentioned some things about the figure there. We talked about how Akan females born on Wednesday are called Akua after the divinity Akua, and it's a confirmation of what is in their kra, their soul, divine consciousness, and the kind of energy they brought into the world and so forth. These same ritual practices, the day name, kra name, soul name, so-called day name, continued in North America as well. So you'll find Kwajo, a male born on Monday, Ajua, female born on Monday. Mrani, or praise name, is for Kwajo, is Jojo, and then for Ajua, it's Jo or Jo. And so, of course, you'll find people named Jojo and Joe and so forth. Those sound vibrations were familiar to our people, so when we saw the baby, what day they were born, we were naturally drawn to say, well, this looks like a Jo, Jojo, or Ejo, and so forth. This is an Akan name, or Essie, a female born on Sunday, Essie, and we name people Essie, or you have somebody named Kwabena, or Benna, or Ben, and we want to name the boy Ben, or a praise name for Kwabena, Ebo, dealing with metal and so forth, metal worker, iron worker, metal caster, Ebo, and so we have children named Bo and so forth. So all the Krade, Akrade, the soul names, Akan, Krade, soul names connected to the Abosom, governing the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies which govern the 7-day week. You will find those names or those Mrane, the praise names, in the language of our people today. Dinkra symbols, Kente cloth, Akradeen soul name, as well as the AKUABA, NDU AKUABA, the rootwork, root medicine, all of these aspects of Akan culture, all fused together, all coalesce in Hoodoo, the Akan tradition, Akan religion in North America. So we go into some detail about that in this particular piece, specifically on this specific AKUABA that we have reclaimed for our people. Okay, so we're going to go to the chat room and the phone line. And first we're going to go to the phone line, then we're going to get to the chat room. And as we're waiting for that to come up, make sure, because we, of course, Blog Talk has had some problems with the phone line, so let's see if that's going to work out. And right now it's still loading, so what we're going to do is we're going to check the chat room real quick. And we saw some comments. When someone who participates in the popular religions asks about your practice and you know they will respond negatively, what should we tell them? So if people are our people specifically, because we don't share information about the culture with our enemies, the whites and offspring, we don't care at all what they have to say, what they think they're criminal spirits of disorder, all of them who exist, all of them who have ever existed, and all of them who ever will exist, whether they're an infant or the oldest cracker you've seen. They're spirits of disorder. So we don't share our culture with our enemies. But when it's our people who are trying to learn something, we just give them accurate information. They say, well, what is hoodoo? Isn't that evil and all sorts of nonsense? So then what hoodoo means? Ndu means medicine specifically. It also means to conjure, to communicate with the forces in nature and our direct blood ancestresses and ancestors. We align our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order every moment of every day. And ancestral religion is the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance. They don't know what hoodoo means. They've never heard a definition of that. They don't know what Vodou means. They've never heard a definition. So when you establish that definition, that's the first time they will actually hear a real definition. If they say, well, voodoo means evil, say, what language does the term Vodou come from, and what does it mean in that language? And they can't tell you. So when you say actually Vodou comes from the Fon and Ebe language, and it actually means a deity, a god or a goddess, a divinity. the divine spirit force in nature. Now they know what it means, and they can't erase that from their mind. When you say Hoodoo comes from the Akan language, NDU, it means medicine used ritually to heal from roots and herbs, plant life, nature, and so forth. And we utilize that. We attune to the forces in nature, extract medicine so we can bring balance to our lives. And that's a word in the culture, and we've used it for thousands of years. Then that they can't erase that from their mind. And now they have a proper definition. And of course, you can always direct them to the website, direct them to accurate information. Our information, our publications are free downloads, of course, so there's no coercion for them. They don't have to be forced to purchase something. They don't have to be forced into having to, come up with some money or feel like they're going to be drawn into a group and they're being pressured to join some ancestral religious group because they already have a negative, view of something anyway. We don't recruit people to join the Akan tradition because you can't recruit somebody to join an ethnic group anyway. You're born of an ethnic group. So people are encouraged to find out what group they are incarnate of. You don't have to join a group. You were born into a group. So when they don't have any pressure of somebody trying to recruit them, because that's cosmologically impossible anyway, they don't have any coercion to try to have to be, intimidated to spend some money or any kind of other recruiting technique, when they can just get the information freely without any pressure or coercion, then they're open to actually paying attention. And this is what we have laid out on the website. Okay, so there was another question I've seen. People refer to Aminet as Moot. And let me get back to that question. In the chat room, scrolling back down. Aren't they two different divinities? Yes. So, however, Moot, the general term Moot means mother. In fact, Moot comes, or Mutter, or mother, comes from Moot in ancient Kemet. So Moot means mother. So many divinities are called Moot just because it means mother. So Aset is called Moot Ntoro, the mother divinity, and many of the deities are called, goddesses are called mother as an honorific title and as a literal title. But there is a divinity named Moot, and she is a wife of Amen, but the great wife of Amen is Aminet. So when you see that image of Amen and Aminet on different places on our website, the expanded picture, we wanted to find a picture of them sitting together, so we often use that one because you don't see a lot of those pictures with them sitting directly together, and it's a very clear, sharp picture. You don't have a lot of clear, sharp pictures of them together like that. So that's the reason we use it. But if you expand and look at the whole picture, you will see Amen, and then next to Amen is Aminet, and then next to Aminet is the goddess Moot. So you will see all three of them sitting together, clearly showing that, yes, these are three different divinities. All right, and I saw somebody touched on that as well in the chat room. Okay, so we're going down to the next question we're trying to find. I started sculpting out of wire. Question is saying, when I was 8 years old, starting out with making figurines and animals, then jewelry pieces, especially ankh pendant with cowrie shells. So, listening to this podcast, I now wonder if I was making these figurines for ritual purposes in a previous lifetime, but even in this lifetime as well. Anytime when we're guided ancestrally to begin to craft geometric form for a specific purpose, and then you infuse that emotional energy or spiritual force into them, you're engaged in a ritual practice and oracular practice, whether you know it consciously or not. So you look at the divinity Ptah, he's the divine craftsman, the master craftsman and so forth, fashioning sculptures and statues, but also shrines and so forth. That's a ritual function, and people are children of that divinity, as well as children of Kunwemu, another sculpting divinity and so forth, who fashions the Ka, and the person's body on the divine potter's wheel and so forth, that's a divine function. So that's very possible. All right. And you can also, of course, always find out through communication with your own Kra what that divine function is and what you were doing, why you have been led to do what you've been doing. Okay, we're just scrolling back up to make sure we didn't miss anything in the chat room. Now we're scrolling back. Okay, somebody answered the question about moot. And so where do mu and moot fit in? I thought ka and kaet, and hu and hahut, noon and nunet. So, yeah. So this is where they fit in. If you look at the Kuku Tuntun, we talk about mu and moot and so forth. But fundamentally, you have Amen and Amenet, the great mother and great father. The stable, permanent, and abiding. Men, Amen, Amenet, invisible or hidden being. So men means stable, permanent, and abiding. Amen also means hidden or concealed. So Amen and Amenet are the great being. The stable, permanent, and abiding men, hidden or concealed men, beings. They give birth to Ka and Kaet, which manifests as the black substance of space. They give birth to Hehu and Hehut, the expansive and contractive vital force that begins to expand and contract and make the black substance of space begin to expand and contract. Noon and Nunet are birthed within that black substance, which gives that wave energy and makes that black substance fluid. And then the wave energy of Noon and Nunet give birth to Ra and Ra'at, the creator and creatress. They explode in the form of fire and light and begin to spiral and carve out black spheres throughout the black substance of space. When they're carving out these black spheres, including stars, which are black bodies. One of those stars is our sun, of course, our Oriya, and then that gives birth to planets. When the spirit of Ra and Ra'at move through the primordial planet and begins to enliven the primordial planet, and that energy separates the denser portions from the lighter portions. That's the manifestation of not only atmosphere, but then the fluid, denser portions, which is the primordial ocean. Mu and Mu on Earth, the primordial ocean. Mu means water, that's male. Mut is water, female. That's another reason why Mut has to do with mothering, because there's an amniotic fluid within the mother, within which the child is, developing and so forth. So that's why Mut or mother is associated with water. So, but then of course the male has the fluid which the sperm cell swims through. So that's an efflux, emanation of water and fluid and so forth, having to do with birth. But Mu and Mut is primordial ocean. The general term Mu means water, as well as Mut, the male and female aspects of water. So that's where they come in at. And we mentioned them in the Kuku Tuntun in that process. Okay. And as we're scrolling through, okay, so there's a question, what is the significance of the topsy-turvy doll? So if you Google topsy-turvy dolls, or if you Google African-American folk art or something like that, you'll find these antique dolls that were created during enslavement. And it's really two dolls in one, going in two different directions with a little dress in between. And you flip the dress over and cover the bottom half of the doll. And it's basically, you have a black doll with a dress. But then you flip the dress up to cover the body of the black doll, and then coming out of the bottom is a white doll, and it looks like it has a dress on. So it's a way for children to play with dolls, but the whites and offspring didn't want the white child to be playing with a black doll. So they would cover that, black doll up with the, the skirt. And just the white part of the doll was sticking out. Black child would play with the doll. They would cover up the white portion and play with the black doll. So this is what they were using those topsy-turvy dolls for. Okay. And it looks like on the phone line, it's still loading on the phone line, so it looks like receiving the calls is not working, so this is another fix that problem with. So it looks like we won't be able to take those calls. So if you have a question on the phone line, just send us an email either via Facebook or our regular email address on the website, og.fo.com, or you can connect with us even on Blog Talk. We have you can connect with us on Blog Talk, but Twitter, we're og.fo on Twitter, og.fo on Instagram, og.fo on YouTube, of course, og.fo on Blog Talk, and og.fo or Kwesi Akan or Afuraka Afuraikai on Facebook. Just send us a message that way. Okay, so, and there's a question. The meeting for the Nanasom Peku in New Jersey, we haven't confirmed the date yet. It's possibly going to be the first weekend in October, but we will send out a notification for that. Most likely it will be the first week, either the first or a second weekend in October to meet there. And New York will also be sending out a notification for that, but most likely it's going to be the third weekend in November, but we'll be sending that out. And also, we'll also be letting people know. So keep checking the website and Facebook with regard to the updated information with regard to the event this weekend. If you'd like to contribute the work that we're doing with regard to the events, as well as even acquiring, we're going to be acquiring more ancestral ritual implements as they come, to reclaim them for our shrines, these figurines, these ritual sculptures and so forth that were carved by the hands of our people in North America that have been unearthed from the plantations and other places in North America, to reclaim some of these. Of course, we won't get all of them, but reclaim some of them for our people. They still have the ancestral energy of our direct blood relatives that have lived here for hundreds of years, connected to them, and they are, it's something for our people to feed from, to be nourished from, to energize from, not just Akan, of course, but Afro-Akani people in general in the Western Hemisphere. So if you'd like to contribute to that effort, of course, you can always, any purchase of any one of our books, always assist anything that we're doing. You can also make a donation, any donation of $15 or more, of course. We'll send you one or more of our softcover books. So when you go to the publications page on our website, you can purchase softcover versions of the book. You can also, of course, you can download the free ebook versions. You can purchase the softcover version. There's also a donation button where you can donate for the monthly subscription, but you can also make a donation if you would like. And again, if you would like to receive one or more books in return for your donation, just make a note of that when you're making the donation. Let us know which one or more of the books you would like to receive. Okay. Okay, so, and there's another question. I wish I didn't live so far away. I'd love to come to some of the events, but we will be, especially this year coming up, we will be doing more events in different cities, and it started, of course, this past weekend in Philly, coming up in New Jersey and New York, and we're looking at different places in the South, in Florida, as well as the West as well. So we will be getting back out around the country, bringing this information of Ojirama, the purified nation, of Afro-Akani people in the Western Hemisphere, our ancestral religious practices all around the country. And we've also had people ask us about coming to overseas as well, so we will be doing that as well. So that will be coming up, of course. This year, 13,016, which begins next week, is going to be the year of Ojirama, the purified nation of Afro-Akani people in the Western Hemisphere, reclaiming our culture, restoring ourselves to our proper function. So, yes. So and somebody talked about a Google Hangout. You can do that, have that information as well. So, again, Yedase, we thank you for tuning into the show. We will be back on tomorrow for Ujida and Yebeshia Bio. We will meet again. That's it.